Welcome to the Heather Penny podcast, where our goal is to help you reach your potential by increasing clarity, building confidence, and engaging courage. Heather is a leadership coach, trusted advisor, and admired author. I'm Christina Morales, a writer and marketer, and Heather is my dear friend and confidant, and she's a leader in my world. So today we're talking about becoming a leader in your world. Heather, you said something that stuck with me last week. You mentioned that you were a leadership coach and that every person is a leader in their own world. Can you tell me a little bit more about that comment?
Oh, sure. I'd love to. In my work, I may get approached by someone who, I'm trying to think of two examples. Okay, here's two in my mind now. I have this beautiful stay-at-home mom. I absolutely love her. I don't think she realized she was a leader until I started talking about she's a leader of those two kids.
Yeah.
She's a leader in her home, and she shares a home with her co-parents with her husband. It was so powerful to see her begin to shift her paradigm. Once you begin to see yourself for who you truly are, that's when you rise up. I was working with a CEO. He is a leader of a huge company, of over 400 employees and multi-million-dollar company, but he was kind of missing his role in the leadership. And as I began to work with him, he began to find not only his role in the company, but really his authentic style of leadership. So I think it's like wherever you're at, learning to see yourself as you have the potential to be a leader in your community, in your home, in your schools, in your organizations. What a richer place this world would be if we all really own that responsibility. And it's not about the numbers. It's not, It could be one child, it could be 400 employees. It's about you seeing yourself for who you are and what you have to offer. You could even not have children. You might just be going through a Starbucks and realizing you have the power from the moment you walk in that Starbucks, how you're going to present and lead in that moment. That's a leadership thought that most people don't live with. And I'd love to see people begin to recognize how you could get to contribute positively to this world and actually influence how you can lead people into more collaboration, more love, more peace, more camaraderie, more strength. And oftentimes we abdicate that power. We don't recognize really the role we each get to play in our communities.
That's so good. How can we assess how we're doing as a leader?
That's a great question. I think you ask key players in your life. I realized I went through a season and I've got a huge client load right now, but there's some people that give me feedback and that I go, why am I listening to them? I don't really admire how they're living and I don't want to be where they're at. I'm not going to listen to that individual. I have others that I will listen to and I go, wow, I really admire the way they're living. I respect the way they think. So their feedback to me is going to be highly valuable. I think giving yourself that permission to be very selective of who you seek feedback from and who you listen to. Brene Brown talks about this. She talks about having a little card in her wallet with 6 names on it. And they're the only 6 people she listens to. I love that she gave that example because I did the same thing. I was like, I'm writing down 6 names. But I'm like, oh, if you're going to do great things in your life and you're going to move forward in leadership, you cannot listen to the whole world. But you do have to figure out where you're going to get feedback. And there is a handful of people that I listen to and I say, I'm choosing you to get feedback from you. And they might be professionals, they might be friends, they might be someone that I've chosen or hired, it doesn't matter, but it's someone I'm very selective about. I care about their feedback. But the bigger your life gets, the more you have to filter through that and say, this feedback is irrelevant. I'm not saying the person is irrelevant. I'm saying the feedback is irrelevant to the path and the direction that I want to go in life.
And so what are 3 to 5 qualities that every good leader possesses?
I would say curiosity. I tell people stay curious. I tell people, I call these the staying powers. Stay curious, stay humble, stay integrated. That means like keep your heart and your head both there. Don't lead out of just one or the other. It's important to stay integrated, stay balanced. There's also this idea of stay strong, stay sensitive. These are the staying powers, I believe, of leadership that allows us to stay the course in who we are as a leader. Again, whether you're leading children or whether you're leading your home or whether you're in your community or whether you're in a huge organization, owning the fact that you want to stay humble, stay curious, stay strong, stay sensitive, stay integrated. This allows you to actually stay the course as a leader.
Mm-hmm. And as leaders, how do we develop and grow those under us?
I always like the individualized approach. So I believe there's so many leadership principles out there and they're wonderful and I grab onto them. But as I hold the leadership principles in one hand, I'll give you an example. I like Patrick Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team, accountability, commitment. These are some leadership principles. I'm holding that on one hand, but in the other hand, I'm saying, so how does that apply to you as a leader? How are you, Christina, holding accountability? What does accountability look like in your world? How are you holding that commitment? How are you holding that trust building? So I'll take leadership principles that are powerful and amazing, but then I break it down and I say, what does it look like for you? And that's where it moves away from consulting. Consulting comes in and talks about the leadership principle and then they leave. Coach comes in and says, I'm going to take that leadership principle and I'm going to help you apply it in the way that's authentic to your style of leadership. And I'm going to help you get past leadership lids. And I'm going to help you identify where it is you want to grow as a leader and set target growth areas. And then I'm going to help hold you accountable for it. And then I'm going to help you grow your team. You can only grow your team as much as you personally are growing as a leader, which also means your team will stay stuck in the same areas that you stay stuck as a leader.
What are some of the leadership lids that you just mentioned?
Accountability is the biggest one. I'm working with a CEO right now, and he's flat out said, I struggle with holding accountability. And I'm like, yeah, you do. So guess what? People they will as well. So we've got to get around that to make sure that you are growing and holding accountability, because if you don't, your organization will suffer. So he's doing a great job of stepping into that and holding accountability in conversations. What we usually have to do is figure out what's holding him back. Why is he stuck? It's usually some negative reaction he got from holding accountability, or misunderstanding what accountability looks like, or really not having the tools to know how to hold someone accountable. But that would be the biggest one. If it's in a personal relationship, holding someone accountable might be having a difficult conversation and being more vulnerable and saying, hey, this is where you hurt me. That's a accountability. You have to decide if the relationship's worth it to you. You have to decide if you have the energy to go there, and you have to also recognize if you have the tools to step into that. So accountability is a big one. I see it play out in the professional realm and in the personal realm.
And I have a friend who has a big business. He has about 50 employees. And he said a really interesting statement to me. He said, people don't usually quit a job, they quit the culture. And the culture comes from the top. And so I thought that was so poignant, where it's true, like every job I've quit, it hasn't been because I didn't like the work. It's because, like you're saying, the leader had some issues that they just didn't know how to deal with. So I love that you come aside them and not just consult them, but you coach them on how to be a better leader.
Yes. I would even flip that and say, you're going to want to have clarity then on the culture that you want to be a part of.
Oh, that's good.
Because if you just leave it, yes, I get it and I understand, and I've done that myself, and I totally agree with that comment. That's a great, poignant comment. But then as a coach, this is already me thinking as a coach, I'd say, okay, then what culture do you want to be part of? One of trust, one of accountability, one of transparency, one of maybe nobility, one of curiosity. I encourage people, get your 5 or 6 values there of the culture that you do want to be a part of, and then be that as a leader, because the culture develops as the leaders come to the table with their values.
So how do you, as someone who has a leader who's dysfunctional, how can you approach them? Like if you're at a job and the leader has some issues, how do you say this culture's not working, or how do you address that professionally and respectfully?
Well, here's what's really powerful. I would say 90% of the time, the individual knows.
Yeah.
If I can get them in really a safe space, I know it's a term that's overused now, but I do try and keep it safe for them, and I get them one-on-one and I say, hey, are you aware of some areas of growth in your leadership? Typically they'll go, yeah, I struggle with conflict, or I struggle with accountability, or I struggle with trust, or they'll tell me straight out. And the ones that are a little more alarming is if they're like, no, I'm good at everything. well, now I have to push on the fact that nobody's perfect and that we're all growing. And then I usually use an example for myself of where I'm growing.
Okay.
And I start testing the waters for receptivity to growth. A lot of times people they feel so much shame in their growth that they don't want to be honest about it. So I just try and then go gently with that. If they still are resistant with that, we have a bigger issue, which is a lack of self-awareness. So then I have to really encourage them. You need to go ask these 3 people for feedback. And if they still can't do it, I bring in the supervisor and say, you need to give them feedback and you need to tell them how they're doing their job. And I had one conversation. It was beautifully awkward, beautifully uncomfortable, because the employee did not know that he was struggling with his tone of voice and being disrespectful to his team. So I brought the manager on the line. We had what I call a triad call. And as we're wrapping up the call, I turned to the manager. I said, is there anything else that, this individual needs to grow in? And he said, yep, actually his respect and his tone of voice, he really needs to grow on that. His team members are starting to complain that he's being very disrespectful. And it was so cute. The employee was shocked. Neat guy. I love him, but he was shocked. He's like, what? I had no idea. And then we end the phone call, but I know I've got another conversation next week with him. He gets back on the line. He goes, I was blown away. But that's what the manager told me. I said, okay, that's what we call blind spots. No biggie. We all got them. So let me help you with it. So again, I take away the shame that he didn't realize that was going on. And I help him get rid of that shame. And we move into the fact that it's a blind spot. And then we start addressing it, and I start helping him give tools, and we find out why he's frustrated, why he's talking that way. Or maybe he's just never been trained, or he never knew he was doing that. So I give him new ways to answer or to address things. The biggest thing is self-awareness. If they can't see who they really are or how they're impacting those around them, that's where we have a bigger issue.
That's good. You're not saying you're doing this wrong. You're saying, here, let me help you. What's going on that's causing you to act this way? And so you have a real gentle touch. That is so good. Yeah. We have a large audience of women leaders and executives who look up to you and look to you for advice. What challenges are they facing today? Women leaders have a lot on their plate and a lot to prove. And I don't want to use the B word, but if you are strong and opinionated and you have a strong mission, a lot of times you get labeled as a B word. So how do you address that? How do you help these women leaders?
Yeah, I think that I always honor the anger. We've all been there. If you're a strong woman leader, you've been marginalized. Every strong woman leader has a marginalized story. My job is to help them talk about that story so that they don't get stuck in the anger, create the category they need for it, and get rid of any blocks that's preventing them from leading at their best level. What we can do is start recognizing that some of these harder stories make us better as leaders. If we can really be open to that and own that, we begin to look for that silver lining. And I don't mean to sound like Pollyanna or dismiss any pain, but I also feel like I'm not willing to let myself stay stuck in any kind of marginalization or any even kind of discrimination or any glass ceilings, whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to let that make me less of a person, less of a leader. But I am going to call it a spade a spade. I'm going to say, yeah, this is what happened to me. I've been flat out told I will not hire you because you're a woman. If you were a man, I would have hired you. And, I'm probably old enough now that I probably have stories going back a little further decades. The world has changed quite a bit more, but there's still a very significant glass ceiling. And there's a lot of angry women out there that aren't getting heard. So one of the things I try and do is just saying, if we don't deal with your stories and your anger, you're only going to sabotage yourself. Nobody wants to follow an angry leader. That's the bottom line. But my goal then is to listen behind the scenes and say, tell me your stories. Yep, I've heard them all. Now let me help you find a category for it. One example I can remember is a woman CEO, president, and she was working with a company. And I remember her saying, well, yeah, I showed up in the room and I was the only woman in the room and nobody was listening to me. But that's okay. I said it 3 times and then finally a guy said it and they listened to him. This is a typical issue that happens. And I said, whoa. I just heard a false belief. When I talk, you don't have to listen to me. You've just then emoted that. You have shown that that is okay to be treated that way. I said, let's go back to your belief. She goes, oh my gosh, I never even realized that. I said, yeah, own your belief. When I speak, I expect to be listened to. And P.S., I'm the leader of this company. It's not like you're just a director or something, right? It was so cool to watch it change. She wasn't trying to control them. She was trying to control herself. She needed to control her own belief system. She had participated in creating that glass ceiling. So what I try and get women to do is really own, what is it you're believing? That doesn't mean that they're magically going to always listen to you, but you still get to walk in the room and say, no, I expect to be listened to. And I even just taught her little, styles of just stop and say, listen, I just said this and I don't want to have to keep saying this. I'm going to say this one more time, but I need you to hear me. Women need to learn those kind of tools that go along with their true beliefs. Then they have to own the false beliefs and start rejecting them. So we dealt with the belief system internally. And I said, let's address that false belief, which is you don't have to listen to me. Let's change it to true belief. And she changed it into, when I walk in the room as a leader of this company, I expect to be listened to. I said, perfect. That's your true belief. Now, how are you going to communicate in a way that's respectful, collaborative, and it's a place that people want to follow you and it doesn't turn into that B word, right?
Yeah.
But what happens is women, and we have to own this, we've allowed these false beliefs to live in us for so long. So on that 50th time when someone's not listening to you, we blow a gasket, right? We are so angry because we've been dealing with it for so long. We didn't deal with it earlier internally and then match it with external communication of, listen, this is what needs to happen when I'm leading this project or this organization or this group of people.
One of the things I love about you is you give us tools. And it's not just, walk into the room. It's, okay, say, I said this already, and now you need to listen to me. I love that you gave us the words and the tools to actually make a difference and make that change. So that's so helpful. And right now we're in COVID-19, and I know you have a lot of leaders who are coming to you saying, what do I do? How do I lead during this unique season? What are some of your calls sounding like, and what tools are you giving these leaders?
There's a lot of trying to set up new systems for accountability because people working out of home. Some people are really thriving at home. Some people are floundering. And I feel so sorry for these leaders because the challenge is trying to figure out who's thriving, who's floundering, and who's in between. One very simple example of that is I was working with this vice president. She's doing a phenomenal job, but she was just overwhelmed. She's got a team of about 25 people, and they're all working from home. And again, some are floundering, and some are thriving, and some are in between. Some she doesn't even know where they're at, I set up a whole new accountability system, and very simple. She sent over an email to me, and it was like, I don't know, 5 paragraphs. And I was reading, and I go, wow, okay, this is overwhelming me. Let's get this into 3 action steps and 3 bullet points. It was as simple as just highlighting what it is she needed from them. Because they came back to the table and she's like, nobody did anything. And I go, yeah, I think they were overwhelmed with your communication style. It was as simple as that. So then we kind of tweaked that. She highlighted things and came back. And then I said, now don't expect 100%. So I'm helping her with the expectations. I said, what was the response like? She goes, 60%. I go, wow, it went from 0% to 60% in one email. Awesome. That's an awesome trend. Okay, now let's get it to 100%. What can we do to refine it? Well, go get that 40% that didn't respond and have a one-on-one with them and say, why are you responding? So then that requires that next level. So I'm just constantly helping someone evolve as where they need to go as a leader, but address the challenges in front of them and recognize, yep, we got to create a new skill set. Whether it's holding accountability or building trust or increasing commitment or getting results, we have to create a new skill set because the environment is changing around us. We can't expect what worked before to work with what we're dealing with now.
And how are they dealing with everything emotionally? Is everybody feeling overwhelmed? Are they resistant to change? Are they willing to go with the ebb and flow?
The biggest thing I'm seeing is loneliness, and I think both the employees and the supervisors, and personally, when I work with my personal clients as well, I just see the things we took for granted, even just as simple as going to Starbucks or going to the mall or meeting around the water cooler at work, so to speak, the things we took for granted and social interactions we have day to day, people are kind of thrown and they don't know how to name it. And so I'm having to help them create a structure for how to reach out to people, whether it's over Zoom or over the phone call, or being able to meet with people outside or wherever it is that you're socially comfortable with. It's helping people start taking initiative and create more opportunities and structure to get that social interaction or to have that collaborative conversation you need to have for work. we started seeing it, this company I was working with, we started seeing everybody running off to their silos, and we'd worked years of building this camaraderie and this teamwork and this united front. We started seeing them drift back to their silos. I was like, nope, we got to go after them. We got to go after those employees and find ways to get them back here. We had to get more creative. I felt sorry for the leaders because they were already tired because they'd worked so hard bringing everyone together, and it felt like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. So, I offered compassion, empathy, and then my job is to come alongside them and say, okay, here's some really strategic ways to bring everybody back to the table. We had to bring more Zoom calls in. We had to create more opportunities to get people face to face. We had to start pairing people up to work on projects, to hold accountability, but also to address the loneliness factor. So all those things. We had to increase our check-ins. And we had to deal with the fact that a lot of the check-ins were a lot of emotional check-ins. People were struggling at home. They were suffering with trying to do homeschooling and with their kids. They were feeling lonely if they're living on their own. They didn't have the interaction they were used to at work. So a lot of the leaders were overwhelmed with the emotional, just almost tsunami that started coming to the check-ins that had less to do with their work and the results. And as leaders, what do we want to do? We want to get results. We're overwhelmed when a lot of the emotions start coming at us. So I just said we have to slow it down because we have to start hearing some of that, but we have to hold it with, yep, we got to get results. So it's just a different, you have to kind of tweak how you lead when you're in the middle of crises.
And piggybacking on that, we are sheltering in place. We are the leaders of our own little worlds, and we're at home. How do we do that? What does that look like on a daily basis at home, on social media? What does that look like in the day-to-day life?
Yeah, it's a great question. Right now, I'll just speak for myself personally, but I think you can transfer a lot of these ideas over to your own personal life. It's always about evaluating. I have 2 teenage kids, husband and 2 dogs. And my beautiful work at home office is infiltrated daily, and so having conversations with my family and saying, okay, I will have these hours open, these hours I'm doing a podcast, please stop slamming the door.
Right.
Please get the dogs under control. These are things I kind of have to just gently say and communicate. And then I'm also recognizing that particularly my kids, they need me. And they may not, they're at the age where they're not going to be clinging to me and saying, mommy, mommy, right, when they were toddlers, but they do need me in different ways. My daughter's getting ready to go to college. She wants me to go shopping with her to help her prep for her college dorm, that stuff like that. And of course, sending her to college during COVID is just quite the journey. So things like that, where recognizing newer conversations and making yourself available really comes with 2 main things my husband and I keep talking about is slowing down, being present. Slowing down, being present. And we just keep saying that over and over and over again. And that means doing less, trying to keep up with less, and making sure that the people, whether in social media or whether they're actually coming to our home or into our offices, either physically being here or through the phone or Skype or Zoom, there are connections and voices that are honoring what we're trying to be about in our world. And even clients, I'm real careful about how I engage with them and making sure that I even stagger them around when my daughter wants me to go to Target. These are things I was not anticipating, but it's something I have to make sure that I am holding well in order to honor my personal life as well. And that goes back to, I don't have the perfect balance on work life, but I do believe in harmony. And the more I can try and keep that harmonious, I'm constantly evaluating, how do I feel about my work life harmony today? And if I give myself kind of a bad grade on it or a bad score, there's no shame in it. It's just helping me see, yeah, that didn't work well. I had 8 calls back to back to back to back, and my kids were starving by the time I got off, or I just realized they ate a feast of donuts all day, or whatever it is. I'm constantly trying to work through, what does that look like for me to honor who I am and all the roles I play, and to do each one really well.
I think that's good. We were talking about listening to others, but also listening to ourselves and analyzing where are we at and how are we interacting with the people around us. And so, and you do that so well. One of my measures of a leader is they treat everybody the same. The doorman, the superstar, someone who makes 0 versus millions, they treat that person the same. And that's what you always do, Heather. So I appreciate how genuine you are and how thoughtful you are to the people around you. So thank you.
things I want to talk about leadership is this idea of authentic leadership. Like I said, whether you're leading your home or whether you're leading in the workplace, sometimes we try and be a leader that we're not meant to be. And
You explain.
yeah, okay, I will.
Yeah.
Let's use the idea of holding accountability. It's a big one. You know, they think they have to go and hold accountability a certain way that maybe their supervisor did, or their parent, or, you know, their sibling, whatever it is that was responsible for holding more accountability in their life. And I want to say it's going to be critical for you to find out how you hold accountability and do it in a way that fits your style. So for me personally, I realized the word accountability was such a huge trigger for me for years, because why? I hate conflict. Once I acknowledged that, I realized, oh, I don't have to go and have this face-to-face conflict with people. I get to come alongside them and say, hey, have you thought about this? That's more of my style for holding accountability. So for instance, if you're working with me, you're not going to have me come face-to-face with you and say, hey, you didn't do this, you suck. I'm going to come alongside you and say, okay, I noticed that this action step didn't happen. You want to help me understand why? Like, I want to understand why so that I can help you get past these blocks. It's not to shame you. It's not to judge you. It's not to make you feel bad. It's to make sure that we're talking about that elephant in the room so that I can help you get the results you want. So once I got past that, you know, accountability is, yeah, it can be uncomfortable at times, but I get to use it in a way that is connecting with the individual, and my intent gets to stay true and good for that person. It doesn't have to turn into any kind of controversy or conflict. If someone doesn't like it, they get to say they don't like it, and that's okay. And I get to hear that and I say, oh, sure. Oh my goodness. We either misunderstood each other, or we're not a fit, or, oh, let me re-explain, or thanks for checking that. These are all things that I love when clients can step into it and make sure that they feel good and they feel safe with our conversation and our style. So once I started recognizing what that was behind accountability, it allowed me to authentically find my style and not feel like I have to fear it or get worried about it. I get to step into accountability with this confidence and this courage and this clarity.
And what I love is you're building up the leaders, and the way that you're saying it nicely to the people who are working for you is now you're building them up and helping them reach their goals. And so you won't have to they won't have to be so accountable to you and say every little thing. They can become their own leader in their own world instead of having you micromanage them, which is amazing.
Exactly. Right. You want to see where people are good at and let them fly, but kind of give them some goals of where you're heading and say, okay, are we all heading in this right direction? So that's my job as a leader, is just saying, okay, let's make sure we're still heading in the right direction. And even when, not if, but when someone gets off course, which it happens, we honor their creativity. I'm like, wow, I love that you colored outside the lines. The only thing is it's starting to get too complex as a team. So back inside the lines, and then maybe we can consider that later. You know, I just honor that people are trying to be innovative and creative and take initiative. I love that. So I really trust people's intent as a leader.
When I was a high school teacher, we would focus on the Enlightenment period. And there was a quote that said, which leader is better, one that you love or one that you fear? And it was this whole concept. And I always thought that was the stupidest question, because there's no loyalty to one that you fear.
Yeah, exactly. It's short term, right? And it's about your favorite leaders or favorite teachers. You can have these amazing connections with them because it was one you loved and you felt loved by them.
That's yes. Exactly.
The one weird, you were like, you're just glad you survived it. Right? You don't have any loyalty to them. You're glad you survived it. And did they get the results? Yes, but there's no loyalty or commitment that's building in. And so then are your people going to be innovative? No. They're not going to be innovative. They just want to make sure that they don't get their hands slapped when they color outside the lines.
Exactly. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you, Heather.
Yes.
Leadership is so important, and you're a leader for so many of us. So thank you for setting the example for us to follow and to learn by. So thank you. Please subscribe to the Heather Penny podcast. And for questions, comments, and resources, please visit heatherpenny.com. Remember, to live your best life, you have to live intentionally. Have a great day, and we can't wait for you to join us next week.
Take care, y'all.